Engineers, start your engines!
Yellow's out. Family just let out wreck him. And she busted her.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2. The green flag is out once again, and we are ready to roll 3 wide with DJG. As you all know, last weekend was the 50th annual Winchester 400 at Winchester Speedway. Dakota and I both attended. We camped out all weekend, and I think to begin the show, we're going to kind of discuss how that went for us. So first off, Friday, I took a half day. Dakota had the day off. We had good plans to get up there super early. Didn't happen. And of course, it had been raining all day. And now I knew that the campground, all the pathways were dirt. And when we got there, they were no longer dirt. It was about a foot of mud. And keep in mind, we're in Dakota's little Honda Civic, and everybody else there is in their big Yee trucks or their big RVs or, not Honda Civics.
Yeah.
So we turn off the main road to the track, and then we get to like one of the main lanes for the campsites. We turn right, and we see 2 sites that are open, and you can't see the number to the campsite because there's little flags that are stuck in the ground, and you can't see the number to the campsite until you are right on it. So we thought that maybe these 2 spots were ours. Boy, were we wrong. We were there for a matter of 5 seconds. And Dakota, naturally, as I would have too, stops because we're like, oh, maybe these are ours. And we are stuck. 5 minutes into being at the track, I have to get out and help him push his car out of the very thick, soupy mud. And I'm already covered in mud. And it's all over the inside of his car, all over his leather seats. So, whatever. We finally find our campsites, and there's an RV in the way.
Yeah.
Well, the RV just so happens to be, guess what? Stuck. Sat there all weekend, which was fine with me. He didn't cause any issues. He did think that they were his spots.
Yeah.
But we had proof otherwise. But his RV served as a pretty big wind block for us, which it was still pretty windy, but I can't imagine what it would have been like without the RV in the way. So anyway, we get to our campsite. We get parked on somewhat dry land. Enough that the car's not sinking.
Right.
And we start getting stuff out. We no more than get the tent rolled out. Like, just rolled out. Flat on the ground. And it starts pouring rain. So, wishful thinking, I was like, maybe the tent's all zipped up and there will be no water in the tent after the rain. Once again, wrong. We actually took the time to get a canopy up to kind of stand underneath it, which I was still getting rained on. Dakota did leave his windows down in his car while it was raining, so that kind of washed some of the mud off the seats, I guess.
Yeah, so everything, I'm going to stop you right there for a second. Everything that could go wrong that weekend went wrong.
Up to that point. Keep in mind, we've only been at the track for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, not very long.
And it's just going downhill. We're trying to keep positive attitude. It's very hard to do so when you're wet, cold, muddy. So anyway, we finally get the tent up. Whether we did it correctly or not, we had no idea at that point. We were just trying to get it up and get the tarp over it so that in case it did rain some more, it wasn't pouring water into the tent.
So at this point, we're doing damage control to what?
Yeah.
The damage that was already done.
To kind of step back a little bit, we did realize that all of the windows in the tent were zipped up, but the center section of the tent like that covers. It's like a 4-room tent, basically, like one big room, and then there's 3 little bedrooms off of it. Well, the big living room area, as well as the top of all the bedrooms, is just like a mesh top, so it's wide open, which means all of that rainwater went right into the tent, and it puddled. Boy, did it puddle. So we get the tent up, and at this point, it's getting dark. It's almost dark. The only lights we really have are from the track, because they were trying to dry off the track and get some racing in. Luckily, they did end up moving the races to Saturday morning, and we didn't miss anything. So, to continue our bad luck, we get the tent dried out, thanks to the help of Dakota's parents for bringing us rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls of paper towel.
I wanted to say this too. God bless them for their attempts to help us. Appreciate it. I did ask for them to bring us some towels that we don't use anymore, towels that we use for cleaning around the house. She refused for whatever reason.
She said, I don't want you using my towels to clean up your dirty tent.
Right. And so they bought a big package of paper towels. And so, of course, I was the one to go in there first. I gave up, and then they went in and did it. Standing water, puddles of water in the tent, and I'm unrolling this paper towel, and I'm supposed to soak it up, and nothing's happening. My mom's sitting at the door of the tent, and I grab this wet paper towel bunch that I had up, and all the water just pours out of it. And I'm like, we're not getting anywhere with this paper towel situation. It's just not working. And so I'm like, at this point, I'm going to be honest, I was pissed off. I was ready to pack everything up and go home because it was just a rough day.
Now, it was a rough day. I'm not going to lie, but I wasn't mad, surprisingly. Any normal time, I would have been very upset. But I was like, you know what? I'm at Winchester Speedway for the Winchester 400. I'm going to stay as positive as possible.
That's a fair point. I also have a short temper. And so, I was really, really looking forward to the weekend, thinking that, by God's grace, it wasn't going to be as bad in the campground. It was very bad. But
to kind of explain this to you, just how muddy it was. Now, keep in mind that RV in front of us was stuck, but that doesn't really, whatever. At one point, in the lane that split, one of the lanes that splits aisles of campsites, or rows of campsites, there was a truck pulling a camper, buried. I mean, like, the hitch of the truck and the front of the camper was almost touching the ground. It was so buried. So then, another pickup truck came over, got in front of it, tied up to it, tried to pull it out. It got stuck. So here comes truck number 3. Same thing. Although it didn't really get stuck, the effort of the 3 of them, they eventually pulled it all the way down the muddy lane. And there may have even been another truck involved in there at some point. I'm not totally sure. After they got away from our campsite, I kind of didn't really pay much attention to it. But back to getting the tent ready, we finally got it dried out enough that we could start putting our stuff in the tent. We're like, Dakota and I hadn't eaten. We'd been out in the cold rain for a couple hours now. We're just like, we knew at this point that they had moved the races. So we're just ready. I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
So we get the air mattresses into the tent, and we have a battery-powered pump. Guess what we don't have? Batteries.
And that was my fault. So I went shopping before we left for Winchester when he was still at work, and I bought the walls for the canopy.
That was a blessing.
It was a really good deal to have. But I didn't check to see if the battery-powered air pump for our air mattresses that we were going to use for the next 2 nights had batteries. So that was on me. I take responsibility, and I do apologize. I do want to backpedal a little bit because this is pretty funny. So while we're getting rained on, we finally decide to go sit in my car until the rain passes.
I knew where this is going.
And I think this might be what put me over the edge. So I have a 2016 Honda Civic. Pretty nice features. Figured it wouldn't have much problem getting through the mud. We're sitting there, cars covered in mud, caked in mud even. And this little Saturn.
I don't even know what it was. All I know is it was a Saturn.
I think, yeah, it was tinier than my car still for front wheel drive. Goes through this mud like nothing.
Like, the dude driving it is like lean back, one hand on the steering wheel, just straight cruising. And we just watch him drive by, and we're like, what did you see?
And no problem. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I was worried about how I was going to get out Sunday after the races, because I knew it was supposed to rain Saturday night. I knew Friday night. It didn't rain Saturday much, and it didn't rain Sunday. But I was worried that the mud wouldn't harden enough to get out. So I was panicking about what I was going to do Sunday after the races. But anyway, other than that, we got the campsite set up. Again, God bless my parents. They went to the store, got us batteries for our battery-powered
and food,
air pump,
so we could finally eat.
And food because we could eat. Because at this time, it was probably like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning.
We had food to make, but like we didn't want to try to start a fire on wet ground. We didn't want to get the grill out and set it up. Like, we just wanted something that was there that we could just munch on, get everything set up, and go to bed, not have to worry about anything else.
Right. So after all that, we finally got settled in, woke up Saturday, and enjoyed the next 2 days of racing.
You forgot to mention that we did get rained on inside the tent.
Right. Because why not?
We woke up in the middle of the night. Keep in mind, I was sick before, like with sinuses, head cold, whatever, before we even left for the track. And here I am, sleeping in a tent, and it's 40 degrees outside. It is raining on me inside the tent. My blanket is soaked. I'm wearing shorts for whatever reason. I'm not the brightest. But once the rain stopped, it was okay. I mean, you obviously still had to maneuver the mud. We also were camping right next to the campground police.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. That dude was pretty funny. But after that, Saturday was full of racing. We froze in the stands, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do if you're a race fan. So, and then we had the big race Sunday, and we
survived.
We did survive.
We survived the 2021 Winchester 400 without rolling our ankles.
Dakota didn't roll his ankles. I didn't fall in the mud, so I'd say
overall,
it was a win.
It was a win. So speaking of racing, Friday's races were canceled due to rain. I know they did try saving the track, but
twice actually, I believe.
Yeah. They finally called it quits. Everyone went back to the campground, had a good time, and races were moved to Saturday. So we're going to start with our highlights from the Pro Late Model race. This race was originally supposed to be 100 laps, I believe. They did cut it down to 75. As you can imagine, Saturday was very busy with all the features that they had Saturday, plus qualifying for the 400, practice sessions that they didn't get in Friday. So very busy Saturday. But one of our highlights from this race is that Billy Van Meter had led all 50 laps prior to the competition caution that they threw in this race. However, at the restart, Van Meter did appear to spin his tires on the outside.
It looked like he spun his tires, and then whoever was behind him kind of got up into his rear and turned him into the wall. Yeah,
and that whole ordeal led to a stack up. Pretty scary for Van Meter, I'm sure. His car veered to the outside wall before he overcorrected, making contact with Cody Coughlin. We'll just leave it at that. The 77 of Andrew Sheed was also involved in this crash. After they got cleanup done and everything, we went back to racing. No other big problems until lap 64, when Cody Coughlin put Chase Berta in the wall.
And when he says puts Chase Berta in the wall, he means puts Chase Berta in the wall. Like, it looked like he just drove him into the wall. Keep in mind here, Chase Berta Billy Van Meter, and I forget who the other one was, as well as Cody Coughlin, are all we're racing for a points championship. So at this point, Cody has been involved in something. Now, the first one, Billy, wasn't Cody's fault. I'm not going to say that, but Cody had been involved in something that took 2 of the 4 points drivers out of the race.
Yeah. And so to avoid any controversy, I'm going to just leave it at that. But yes, it did appear that he did everything in his power to win that championship this year. So, and I was going to say too, a lap prior, Cody did give Berta a bumper, try to get him out of his way, didn't really work. And I think that's probably what led to him, speculation here, led to him putting Chase into the wall. And then, the last laps of this race were pretty exciting. John Beach, who started 16th in this feature, came home with the race win.
I feel like that car kind of came alive out of nowhere.
Oh, for sure. I think the long run was definitely better for him. And, of course, Cody Coughlin, after being the highest finishing championship contender this year, walked home with the 2021 Series Championship. After the Pro Late Model race, the Pro Compacts came out and gave a pretty exciting race. It did start pretty... the race started out pretty rough for Trent Gosser, who was a championship contender this year. It appeared that his car suffered a parts failure on lap 2 of this 30-lap race. And I don't know if you ever saw the picture, but his rear tire...
The left rear tire was at like a 45-degree angle from straight. So it was basically just dragging across the ground. Now, I do believe at one point they said that Gosser tried to hop in his spare car, which originally planned someone else was going to be driving it, but it did not make the feature, and it looks almost identical. So he tried to hop in it and come back out on the track, but they shut that down pretty quick.
Yeah. So the series would not let him come back out in his backup car, but they were allowed to take the parts that they needed off of that backup car and put it onto his primary car, which he would later on do and come back into the race. Anyway, that issue for Trent led to the caution flag coming out. However, on the restart, several cars got collected in the big one in this feature. Drivers involved included Kyle Frame, who was my race pick, and Chris Jennings, who were both championship contenders this year. Pretty big wreck.
It did. It was a pretty good wreck. I hate to see that for guys like Kyle. I was really looking forward to see him run at the high banks. I know I just kind of recently started following him on social media and keeping up with him, but sucks to see that, especially for guys I know that all the guys that race in this series put a lot of time and effort and money into these cars, and obviously you don't ever want to see someone get junked, but let alone early in a race like that, and
right.
People that put all this time and preparation into the race for it to be over in the blink of an eye. Right.
And so that incident did result in Kyle's day being over. I know Chris did go on to attempt to finish the race to keep his championship hopes alive. However, it looks like, let me think, Tom Gosser Jr., very dominant this race, walks home with the win and the 2021 championship title. So
that Tom Gosser is the Zero Outlaw car.
Correct.
That car, I feel like, amazes me every time I watch it run. I'm pretty sure the very first time I ever watched it run was actually at Bristol Motor Speedway. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, just ever since then, every time I see that car, it's just like, he's going to run well.
Mm-hmm. And before we finish up the Pro Compact highlights, I did want to give a shout out to a Vors Compact Series driver. I saw this on Twitter. Matt Weaver posted it from driver Ron Saggers. who posted on Facebook the following: Winchester update. I was caught up in the accident. I did go into the pits under red flag. The Force Compact Touring Series made a mistake and told me to go back to my original position. Like any other racer, I took it. I ended up finishing 4th. Due to it affecting points to a couple of the racers, after talking with Dan, I don't know Dan, but shout out to Dan, he couldn't have on his conscience this 4th place finish, as it would affect the championship point standings. He decided to fall back into the finishing order. So he did finish 8th at Winchester after taking that.
After clearing things up.
Yes. Thank you. But I really just wanted to shout that out because Matt Weaver made a really great point. He said it was compelling. It was a compelling example of integrity, and it's a small gesture, but the right thing to do in a close championships battle. I really just wanted to give that a shout out because I would do the same thing. I've done the same thing at races I've been in. So shout out to Ron for being a decent dude.
Yeah. So now on to what was originally supposed to be Saturday's only show. Not only show, but the main show, minus the Pro Compacts and the Pro Late Models. We will start off with qualifying highlights. Kyle Purvis sets fast time and sets a new track record during the qualifying session for the mods. Jeff Lane grabs fast qualifier in the street stock qualifying session. I do think Jeff Lane has a beautiful street stock. Yeah. I love the look of it. Let's see. During his qualifying attempt, Brandon Varney made hard contact with the outside walls of turn 1 and 2. During his lap for the Sportsman feature, so he was unable to race. JP Crabtree grabs fast qualifier for the Sportsman Series, and Corey Heim grabs fast qualifier for the Winchester 400. Now, I know we're not really going to talk about the actual Winchester 400 for a minute now, but I do want to say this. I was so glad to hear that JP was okay after his wreck.
Yeah.
We'll kind of cover that more when we get to it, but I just wanted to bring that up now. So we'll go ahead and move on. We'll get back to that whenever we start talking about the actual 400. So for the Mod Last Chance race, the top 8 were to advance. And to begin the race, there was a pretty big wreck on lap 1. Sorry, English is difficult. After cleanup, 9 drivers remained. So the drivers in the wreck involved were number 55 of Phil Jenkins, who is a local to our Mount Lawn Speedway, number 12 of Dave Nestor, 7X of Andy Booten, number 69 of Derek Weinbrenner, and the number 72, I believe. I don't know the driver of that car, but from the stands, it looked like Phil took a pretty nasty hit into the wall.
I think the pictures would suggest the same. It was a pretty big hit. It looked like, and from my vantage point, I don't know if you saw it, it did look like one of the mods, one side was completely off the ground.
Right.
It was such a hard hit, and I was concerned for sure.
I didn't really see it when it happened. I heard it.
Yeah.
Because when a car hits a wall that hard, you can't not hear it.
Especially at Winchester when they're carrying some speed.
Now, I did see a video on Facebook from one of the mods that was involved in that wreck. And, it was pretty hard racing up to that point early on. Now, I think it was Phil Jenkins and Nestor came off of 4. I don't think Phil did anything wrong. It looks like Nestor just got loose. I don't know if he thought Phil hit him or...
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember watching it, but it looked like they made some contact out of 4.
Maybe they did.
Nothing serious.
It was just a racing thing. Like, it wasn't like a get out of my way.
Right.
You.
And I remember seeing Nestor, who was on the inside, get pretty wiggly for a minute.
And then sailing off into turn 1, it looks like Nestor just doesn't turn.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I'm just saying what it looked like from my point of view.
Yeah.
So I'm not, in no way am I accusing him of wrecking someone intentionally.
What he appears to be doing, but certainly
especially in a last chance race. Like I don't think you would do that intentionally in a last chance race.
Right. And so we won't speculate too much what they did or didn't do, but certainly from the video, it does look like it.
Again, glad to see all drivers were okay, as it was. It did seem to be a pretty hard hit.
Yeah.
So now moving on to the street stock race. Early caution to start the feature. James Kirby spins entering turn 1, which resulted in a total restart. Then the 96 collects the wall, which ended his night. Jeff Lane unfortunately pulls off at lap 11. As you remember, Jeff Lane was the fast time. So his night was ending early. After battling several laps, Atkinson gets loose under the number 27 of Josh Poore, able to recollect himself and again position himself to battle for a top position. The caution comes out again on lap 23 as several cars battling for third get together out of turn 4. The wreck ends the night for the number 3 and the number 84. 84, Andrew TP was my pick to win this race. Had a solid piece, it seemed like. I couldn't tell if he was, kind of giving it all or if he was waiting until the very end. But got to finish the race, which didn't happen. So at this point in the race, only 9 cars remain, 15 of which started. Lap 25, Atkinson again gets loose out of turn 4, but manages to save it and remain in second. Eventually, Atkinson takes the lead and goes on to win the feature and the 2021 points championship. Now, Jason Atkinson's car, he runs a Mount Lawn, but he has been phenomenal everywhere he's gone this year.
Yeah, and I was going to say that too. He had a very dominant car at Winchester, a very fast car. He did have fast qualifier up until Jeff qualified, and I think it was pretty narrow.
I think Jeff has a lot of issues when it comes to Mount Lawn. He's always got good cars.
Winchester,
always. What did I say?
Not one.
Oh man, I meant Winchester.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
But he always has issues.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, goes out, sets fast time in a street stock, pulls off early.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen several times where he's had a fast modified. Something happens, gets wrecked, or just, a mechanical failure where he has to pull off early.
Yeah, and you bring up the mod race. He was pretty dominant in the last chance race. Didn't seem like he had too many problems, so I wonder what, made him pull off, if it was a failure of the car or...
Him and Colby both pulled off.
Yeah.
In the mod race, and then Colby didn't race street stock.
Right.
We thought he was, but he didn't.
Right. While we're on the topic, though, this race, I have to commend Atkinson for racing very clean.
Very clean.
They were like very close together. I'm sure there was some bumping, but it was nothing like...
It wasn't like there was no...
Dirty.
No, nothing at all. It was door-to-door, good, hard racing for, honestly, the better part of the race.
Yeah.
I was expecting Jason to give a bumper or two to kind of, move him up the track, but it didn't happen, and it was very impressive to me, especially after watching Jason run at Anderson and stuff, which Anderson's a lot different. You have to move people at Anderson to pass them.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of expecting to see that same short track mentality come out.
Well, even at, Mount Lawn, we won't get into it, but definitely seen him make the moves that he had to make to be there at the end. So with all that being said, we'll move into the modified race. 24 cars started the feature. Caution came out pretty early on lap 2 as the 74 came to a stop at the entrance of turn 1. Caution again comes out on lap 4 for debris. Before I go any further, I have to say this race was very caution filled.
I was kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie. Now, once they did get going, finally, it was all right. I was anticipating this to be one of the better races of the weekend, and it took forever. Keep in mind, at this point, we'd been at the track most of the day. We're cold. The wind's been blowing in our face all day. My feet are frozen because my shoes are still wet from the night before, and I was just like, come on, But
Yeah, I wanted to say that because I'll be mentioning a few cautions here before we finally get to the good stuff. So, caution comes out again on lap 4 for debris. 2 previous cautions had come out for the 24 and the 37 jumping the starts. The race official didn't like the starts of those.
let me add here. I don't remember which car it was, but there was one time he didn't jump the start as much, and he just took off. Like,
Yeah.
that car,
It was fast.
it was fast.
Caution again on lap 5 due to a wreck on the backstretch involving the 74. Lap 11, the caution comes back out for debris on the track. Lap 13, caution out for a massive contact in turns 1 and 2. Cars involved in that wreck were the 61 of Brad Springer, the 66 of Cole Carper, the 5 of Danny Jackson, and the 05 of Greg Fullerton. The number 5 of Danny Jackson is able to rejoin the race prior to the restart on lap 13. And then we finally get to racing. Not so many cautions after that. Kyle Purvis takes the lead at lap 39 after battling with Trevor Berry for several laps. Caution flies on lap 42 as the car slows on the bottom of turns 3 and 4. The field restarts on lap 42, and we finish the 50-lap feature with no other problems to report. Kyle Purvis wins the feature while Danny Jackson brings home the 2021 Midwest Modified Championship.
Now on to the Sportsman late model race. 18 starters, caution out on lap 1 as the car slows on the backstretch. Caution out on lap 14 as the 00 of Billy Hudson gets sideways out of turn 1. The number 61 brings out the caution on lap 11 as he loses control and gets sideways out of 1. Another caution on lap 26 as the 96 and the 65 make hard contact with the outside wall exiting turn 1. This wreck brings out the red flag for cleanup. Yet again, another caution comes out on lap 39 as Crabtree attempts to make a move on the 63 of Everidge to take home the championship. Now, this is kind of an odd situation. First, they were coming to the checkered flag.
Yeah.
When JP made this move. And so they were literally in 3 and 4 coming to the checkered flag, and they both get sideways. So they throw the yellow, stack them back up, and it becomes a green-white checkered. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to comment on JP's move. While I can't blame him for making the move, it was very, very, very obvious that he was trying to wreck him.
Yeah. Yeah, because a few laps prior to the white flag coming out, they were battling each other.
It was good racing. I mean,
and there was a few times it seemed like JP had a run on him, but just couldn't finish.
He gained a lot entering the turn. Like, corner entry is where he gained a lot,
but he lost a lot.
He lost a lot on corner exit.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. I think the contact was pretty obvious, but
well, I'm not. I'm gonna also. I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't mean to drive into him. He was trying to drive it deep.
Yeah,
maybe not into him like that.
Of course, and I was going to say, with it being Winchester 400 weekend, it's he was running for the championship as well. They both were.
I also think, which I didn't know this at the time, he was running that same car in the 400. So, I'm going to say he probably didn't mean to, he didn't want to damage it.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's. I mean, I don't think.
This is all just speculation. I have.
Yeah. Allegedly. We don't want to cause any trouble, but, yeah, I mean, you could play, devil's advocate here. I think it's the Winchester 400 weekend. You're going for a championship. You're going for a race win.
Got to do what you got to do.
Got to do what you got to do. But I don't think none of these drivers seem like they're, I mean, I don't know them outside of watching them at Winchester. They don't seem dirty. They don't seem like they're the ones that would go out there and tear up their equipment.
I'm not going to sit here and call someone a dirty racer, because the style of racing that you have to be able to execute at Anderson Speedway, like a track like Anderson versus Winchester, like you can't make the same moves at Winchester because you're going so fast. You could really hurt somebody. Not saying you can't hurt somebody at Anderson, but like, you know, a simple bump and run at Anderson is way less risky than a bump and run at Winchester when you're going, you know, 80 miles an hour faster or however many mile an hour faster.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't want to bring it up, but because I don't remember much about it, but you know, JP was in this situation at Anderson earlier this year, I believe, where a car had made contact with him. I don't know if you remember this or not.
I can't say I do.
I mean, it tore up the body of his car and everything.
Oh, maybe I do. I think I do know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't remember much about it. I think the guy gave him a bump or something, and I don't know. I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to misconstrue anything. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the driving style that you have at Anderson or Mount Lawn is going to be very different to Winchester. I don't think JP intentionally did it. I'm sure he probably gave him the bumper though, but it's not.
Right,
but he didn't. I don't think
he meant to send him.
Right.
So, let's see. That brought out the caution, like I said. This results in a green-white checker. Both drivers being sent to the back of the longest line. So the number 32 of Chris Shannon takes home the race win, while Billy Hudson in the 00 brings home the 2021 points championship.
Yep. So Saturday night, pretty good racing. We did watch qualifying for the 400, which we'll jump into right now.
Which, I'm going to say this is pretty funny. This isn't necessarily like, it's obviously related to racing because I'm talking about qualifying, but so Dakota's little brother, Hunter, this was his first Winchester 400, and we get up in the stands, and he's wearing his jeans or whatever, and he's talking about how he's cold. So he's like, we were all talking before we walked up to the track, and he's like, really, the only thing I care to see today is qualifying because, you know, I don't think he's pretty new in his interest in racing. Mm-hmm. So I don't think his interest in, like, you know, anything but super late models, like, it's all kind of still developing. You know, now at Mount Lawn, he likes watching the mods because it's the biggest thing at Mount Lawn.
Right.
You know, but at Winchester, you know, we're there. He's there for the super late models, and that's it. But anyway, he's like, I just want to watch qualifying. So he is sitting up in the stands, and he's like, I'm cold. I'm going back to the tent to get my get his bibs, his work bibs. And so he leaves the track, walks out to the campground, puts his bibs on, comes back. He literally, gets back, sits down as qualifying ends. I was like, you realize you just missed the one thing you wanted to sit here and watch today.
Right. Yeah. I got no comment for that.
I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. I mean, because I remember waking up and we told him to schedule. Because keep in mind, he didn't come to the campground. He was supposed to camp with us.
He was supposed to camp with us all weekend. And he didn't get there till Saturday
afternoon.
Yeah.
Right before, you know, the stuff started on track. Because I do remember him saying he wanted to go watch qualifying. We were like, yeah, sure.
Because, yeah, we watched the compacts and the pro lates and then went back to the tent. Mm-hmm. And that's when he showed up.
Yeah. So we're still working with him on his interest in racing for sure. But anyway, the biggest race of the weekend, Winchester 400, the 50th running. Caution came out pretty early on lap 14 as the 29 of Tommy St. John goes for a spin exiting turn 4. The caution comes back out again on lap 67 for the first competition caution of the day. So they had ran 50 green flag laps. Mm-hmm. As soon as the caution came out, this was some pretty big news. Race leader Chandler Smith loses power under the caution, and the team says that it appears that they were experiencing something electrical.
I'm going to. I'm not a betting person, but if I were to bet money, if Chandler Smith would not have had problems, he probably would have been the only car on the lead lap at the end of the race.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a fast,
very fast
car.
And very dominant car. And I mean, I think he had a pretty big lead.
If I remember correctly, now don't hold me to this. I want to say that when that caution came out, he had everybody but like the top 7 a lap down.
Yeah,
already.
It was something like that. Yeah. There wasn't very many cars on the lead lap.
He was absolutely flat out flying around that track.
Yeah.
And I want to make another comment. I thought for sure that, kind of going back to Saturday a little bit here with qualifying, Corey Heim goes out, very first car, and drops a 15-1?
Just something like that, yeah. It was fast.
And no one really got close to it after that. I know I was listening to Jack's podcast the other day, and he said something about how he was very surprised that, he thought a track record was going to get broken. And I have to agree with him on that.
I did too. And, they made a very good point that based on my experience in racing, typically your second lap is your fastest lap. And that didn't hold true here. Everyone's fastest lap was their in lap, and they were just slower on their out lap. I did screenshot this. So Corey Heim qualified with a 15.161. Jake Garcia qualified second with a 15.308.
Yeah, and
so
nobody
got too close to his qualifying time. Anyway, the team, Chandler Smith's team, says that they're experiencing something electrical. They spend.
It was 12 laps. He came out and he was 12 or 13 laps down.
I believe he was 13 laps down. They're under the hood. I touched base on it later, but they do change the battery. And after that, it didn't seem like he had too many problems. The red flag comes out on lap 74 as Kostin Hocevar gets loose in turn 1, causing the 98 of Josh Ebert, thank you, and JP Crabtree to be collected. I know, looking at the video, the replay, neither of them had anywhere to go. They were running.
They were just going. You're going too fast.
Yeah.
To Winchester, it's so banked that when you're in the corner, when you're in the turn, you really can't see anything ahead of you.
Right.
You're looking to see ahead of you. You're actually looking directly up.
Right. And of course they have spotters, but with them, they were trailing him. They were in the same line. It seemed like it doesn't matter if your spotter said, "Hey, there's a car turning." You have nowhere to go. I think
Keep in mind there was also cars underneath them on the bottom.
Right. Right. So they get collected. And this was pretty scary. This was the first big wreck of the race. Pretty scary. Crabtree jumps the rear of the 98, causing his car to flip and roll down the banking.
This is the first time I've ever seen a super late model upside down.
Yeah.
I do know that years ago it did happen at Anderson because it was actually a race that I was supposed to go to. My uncle went and he sent me a picture of it. But that's the first time I've ever seen. Actually, I want to say it's almost the first time I've ever seen an asphalt car upside down.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen videos, of course, on social media of these big wrecks where cars get flipped. It doesn't happen very often. It was very scary. Because we couldn't see much of it. I saw the car flip, and from where I was, it looked like. One side of the car was just
the whole
gone.
Side of the car was hanging on.
Yeah.
It was ripped off.
And I think it's safe to say there was a very collective gasp from everybody in the stands, and it went silent.
And apparently, I don't know if it was right after he got out or when he was trying to get out. There was a big ball of smoke coming from the car. I don't know. I know what that was about, but
yeah, I know. I think they said he had a small fire. Of course, they put it out, and people have made the point that being upside down in a car, let alone being in a car on fire. I experienced it this year at Mount Lawn when, of course, it wasn't a big fire, so it wasn't too bad. But I remember, having to jump out of my car because I had a fire on in the engine. I couldn't imagine being upside down in a car that's on fire trying to get out. It's very disorienting, and just very thankful that he's all right.
Yeah, we did get confirmation pretty quick that he was okay. I actually kind of had an inside guy that was working down in the pit area that knows JP. and I have a group chat with him and a couple other guys on Facebook, and he notified us very quickly that JP was okay. So that's always good to hear, especially in a situation like that. You never want to see a driver get hurt. So that's, the equipment's there. The equipment's doing its job. That's why you never cheap out on safety, my friends.
Yeah. So during the red flag, again, Chandler Smith's team is able to change the battery on the car, and he's able to rejoin the field on lap 74. And Smith did have a deficit of 13 laps that he had to make up to even get back into contention of winning this race. Caution comes out again on lap 98 as Chandler Smith makes contact with Hunter Jack, causing Jack to spin on the front stretch. He's able to escape. Hunter Jack is able to escape with minimal damage to the nose of his car. This caution does bring several drivers down to pit road for tires and any adjustments they needed to make. The green flag flies again. And Nassie, who was, I want to say, both of our picks.
I chose Chandler at first. Mm-hmm. Nassie was definitely my second.
Mm-hmm. He's able to take the lead. I want to stop there for a second. Sorry. So they had the driver autograph sessions, and one of the drivers that we both got to meet was Stephen Nassie. I just want to say, great guy.
Really cool, dude.
Really cool. Like, I would love to be friends with Stephen Nassie.
I would love to be able to just sit down and have a conversation with him, about anything, really.
Yeah.
But, you go up to him, you meet him. Keep in mind, this is one of the biggest races of the year. I got him to sign my hat. He's got his little hero car. So I'm like, hey, man, you ready to roll today? He's like, oh, man, I am ready to roll today.
Just a great guy. And
he offers a lot to the sport.
He does. And he's he's a big advocate for short track racing. He does a lot of good stuff. And I'm honestly thankful for guys like him who care so much about this sport and are telling people, hey, we need to do something now before we lose tracks. We've lost tracks all over the country. That's, we know that, but you need to do something before we lose Winchester.
He's not just Winchester. He's, you need to do something before short track racing has gone in general.
Exactly. And that's the point I was going to make. I couldn't imagine losing Winchester, let alone short track racing together. And I think a lot of people kind of just push it off like, it is what it is, track struggle all the time. I don't think that's the mentality we need to have. I think we need to have the mentality that Stephen Nassie has and say,
what can we do to be better?
Right. What can we do to be better, but to also save the sport that we love and care so much about?
And that does, touching on that same topic, it doesn't hurt to try something. It might flop, but at the same time, on the other end, it might take off and it might save your track. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things, Dakota and I, Tony Stewart's SRX, we would love for them to show up at Winchester. Just something big like that would bring a lot of people, a lot of fans, anybody who's familiar with the short track scene knows what Winchester Speedway is, but something's got to change. Something has to be done. Now, I don't know what, I have no idea what, so I can't really sit here and criticize people because I don't have a solution. But I know that there's people out here that have a way better idea of what's going on than I do, that have the ability to go out and change things,
Right. And, to carry on that point, people like Stephen Nassie, who's in the sport, who's invested in the sport, I'm sure he has ideas. And, people like we talked about Travis Braden and Jess Ballard, they've been in the sport. They've been invested in the sport. Jess seems like she has ideas. So it's certainly, what can we do? What do we have to do? And, to touch base on, the SRX series, look what that did for tracks that they visited. I mean, I know Lucas
season
in their very first season. If I remember correctly, Lucas Oil, when they went, right? Did
packed.
They go? They were packed. I'm pretty sure they were sold out or pretty damn close to being sold out. So if it's as simple as bringing a touring series like that,
superstar drivers
to kickstart this progress that we need to make to save short track racing, then we have to do it. We also talked about, what's the dirt series or dirt racing doing that makes them so successful compared to, asphalt series and asphalt short track racing in general. So it's just a lot of stuff like that. But I really just wanted to shout out Stephen Nasse for the work that he's doing, the work that he's done, and the work that he continues to do to better short track racing. But back to Winchester 400. Cody Coughlin makes hard contact with the turn 4 wall on lap 112, causing a major tire rub on his right rear. It seems like at the same time, Kyle Crump also made contact with the wall.
Did he end up making contact with the wall? I don't remember.
I know he did. I just don't remember if it was at the same time Cody did, because I don't remember, and I don't want to make a suggestion as to what happened. I do know that he made contact with the wall also because it did cause major problems for his right front suspension, and I believe he actually lost oil, which did bring out a caution on lap 114. Of course, that ended Kyle's race and run for the championship, as he was a contender also. The green flag does fly again on 135 before the caution comes back out on lap 185 for the next competition caution. This caution did bring down every driver down pit road for tires and adjustments. The green flag did wave again on lap 191 with a race break on lap 241.
The green flag flies again on lap 247 with Dalton Armstrong taking the race lead on lap 273. After a tension battle that lasted several laps, Corey Heim...
I'm sorry. So I typed these notes, and I was typing really fast, and it says tension. I meant tense.
Tense.
I wanted to correct that. Sorry.
I was just reading what was there.
I'm so sorry.
I thought about changing it, and I was like, whatever.
While we have that mistake, I want to say that bear with us. We will get better, I promise.
That's all right.
That was on me, and I take full responsibility.
Tense battle. I should have picked that out. But tense battle... let's see. Corey Heim makes his way back up to towards the front. For a while, it looked kind of like that car had died off after setting quick time in qualifying. It just looked like I said, it looked like it just died.
Yeah, I think over the run, it just definitely was not the same car he had in qualifying.
So then, after leading only a few laps, Armstrong makes hard contact with the outside wall, which ended his day. Tough break for him. Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean...
He's a local driver to us. I mean, he's from
Newcastle. And I've seen him race before. It seems like most recent Winchester 400s, he's almost had it. I think last year he almost had it before he got caught up in some trouble that ended his day.
Which I didn't even see what happened to him. I didn't even see him hit the wall.
I didn't either. I don't know if he lost a tire or what.
All I know is that I saw him drop down below the apron and then came into the pits, and I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, and they got that car quickly on jacks.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So, as we said, Armstrong's day was over. Then shortly after that, Cody Coughlin's day appears to be over as he pulled in on lap 270. Which this would, at this point in time, give Hunter Jack the 2021 points championship.
Yeah.
So then Hunter Jack takes the race lead on lap 293, and right after that, his right front suspension fails. Tough break for him. So looks like his day's over. Competition caution comes out on lap 297 with 13 cars on the track. So then... The caution comes back out on lap 327 for debris as the 33 car makes contact with the outside wall exiting turn 4. This allows Nasse to finally get back on the lead lap after being 3 laps down. So this was awesome. So yeah. Stephen Nasse, it was flying. Granted, there weren't a whole lot of cars on the track at this point. A lot of them, had mechanical failures, wrecked or whatever, and pulled off. But, excuse me, he was 3 laps down. 2 of those laps he got back by physically passing the leader on the track. And the 3rd lap, he ended up getting the lucky dog. And at this point, I was like kid in a candy shop. I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, Nasty's got this race. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that I know that's a testament of Stephen Nasty and his ability as a driver. I know a lot of people give him, simply put, shit for the way he drives, and I disagree. I think he races people the way he wants to be raced. If you make a move on him, he's definitely going to return the favor.
We saw that at the Redbud 400 with no one other than Dalton Armstrong.
Yeah, that was a great time. I love Twitter then. But I just wanted to say that, that is a testament. Whether you like the guy or not, that's the testament of his ability as a driver to be able to come 3 laps down in a race that, if you remember last episode, AJ, our guest at the time, said it's not something that's easily
if you go laps down
at
it's
Winchester.
Kind of like, I think for me, knowing that if you go laps down at Winchester, it's very hard to get back. Like, how do you mentally stay focused enough to be like, I'm getting back on the lead lap? You know what I mean?
And I think, again, testament of him as a driver overall, because I can tell you, if I was in that situation, it'd be very, very hard for me to stay motivated. I would probably pull a move by another driver and just pull off the track and call it a day. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Oh, absolutely. So on lap 328 of 400, the green flag flies once again. Cody Coughlin rejoins the field on lap 334, which kind of caught me off guard. I was just kind of sitting there, and then I see him pull out of the pits. And I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, because at this time they had his car sitting in the pit stall.
They were not touching it. They pulled it off into the grass, off of pit road.
Yeah.
He was out of the car, for a good while now.
Yeah.
So then he goes back out. So this is clearly an attempt to try and win the points championship over Hunter Jack, who was also out at this time. Mm-hmm. So then Corey Heim pulled in around lap 330 with issues on his car. Then, luckily, Hunter Jack was able to rejoin the field on lap 345, attempting to keep Coughlin from winning the championship. Cody once again parks his car on lap 364 and then race break on lap 378, triggering a 20-lap shootout. It was announced around lap 380 that Hunter Jack had officially clinched the 2021 CRA Super Series champion. The green flag flies again on lap 383 before the caution is thrown for Jack Smith jumping the start.
Which seemed like a very controversial call.
I'm not even talking about that one. The one they called, fine. I wasn't really paying that much attention, but the one that they let fly, I felt was way worse.
Yeah.
Because he hit the gas like entering turn 3. Like they were rolling into turn 3 and he just took off and they let it fly for whatever reason. Not my call, whatever.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if you've never been to Winchester, the restart line is the exit turn 4, I believe.
It's
right?
like halfway
through.
Yeah.
To give you some perspective on how big of a jump he made.
Mm-hmm. Once the field restarts, Nasty spins, battling for the lead on lap 390, exiting turn 4. And I knew that he was going to spin. Not that I'm God or anything. I'm not going to claim that. But he ran turn 3 and 4 up by the wall, and nobody had really been up there all day, so I knew that, there had to be some marbles, like rubber up there, dirt and stuff that, nobody had touched all day, so it just kind of sat there. And the moment he throttled up, I saw the back end of the car come around. He did pick up some minor damage. Mm-hmm. Nothing too bad. They were able to get it fixed, get everything taped, and once they got it taped, you couldn't tell that car had been wrecked.
Very lucky to not do more damage.
So that brought out the caution. We go back green on lap 394, and this was some great racing. Caution flag comes out after the white flag. Sammy Smith and Jack Smith make contact on the backstretch, causing Jack Smith's car to slide up the track and make hard contact with the outside wall in 3 and 4. After looking at the car, when they brought it in, it didn't look nearly as bad as I thought it was going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely from our point of view, it looked hard.
It looked vicious. Now, Jack was not happy at all. He walked the rest of the way around the track, and, they were interviewing him as he walked in the pits, and, he was basically calling Sammy names and saying that was inexcusable, and it was kind of one of those situations where, everybody, I saw it on Twitter, everybody's like, oh, daddy's money, these young kids racing on daddy's money, and, they wreck cars and don't think about it or whatever.
Right, and, I didn't see any of that on Twitter. I did see the replay. Before I jump into that real quick, I wanted to say this was the second biggest wreck of the race. Very, like you said, very vicious looking from our point of view. It didn't make it any better when everybody started running towards the car, and I was like, "Oh
I thought
no.
someone was really hurt."
Yeah,
because Jack's team, they were
on the
opposite end of the track almost, and they took off sprinting.
Yeah, and all the officials were kind of like just standing around each other, and I was like, "This is not good." So, very thankful to see that Jack was able to get out of the car. Now, I want to jump into the replay. Of course, there's two sides to every situation. So, some people are going to be on the side that Sammy Smith wrecked him. Here's my point of view on this. I watched the replay. It looked like Jack got loose exiting 2. They made contact. They held the contact the whole backstretch. It didn't seem like they got separated.
Okay, to be fair, this late in the race,
of course,
you're not just gonna give somebody the spot. What I mean? So I can't say I blame him.
I don't think it was intentional.
No, I think he was racing.
Could he have let off? Yes, but again, like you said, it's the last lap of the Winchester 400. They had already taken the white flag. I don't see anybody in their right mind saying, "Oh, I would have let it."
Here you go.
Yeah, because of course I feel like watching the replay, Jack could have recovered it. But again, they had held the contact the entire backstretch.
The whole backstretch
until they got to turn 3, and he just got turned around.
I think had Sammy realized it early enough on the backstretch, he could have let off and then probably got a pretty good run on him in the turn.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that all happened so fast. What are you supposed to do?
And I don't want to speculate, but the last lap of the Winchester 400 coming out of turns 3 and 4, who's to say that Jack wouldn't have made a move to block Sammy and Sammy still turn him? Or anybody else for that matter.
I think regardless of what happens there, like if Sammy gets to his bumper, they're wrecking. There's no, Jack's not just going to let Sammy have the spot. Sammy's not just going to let Jack have the spot. Like they're going to be bumping and banging that whole, So I mean, who's to say that nothing would happen? I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, and I was going to say if I was a betting man, I would tell you that there was going to be a wreck on the last lap of the Winchester 400. It just is what it is, unfortunately. So, but like I said, thankful to see Jack get out of his car. Vicious hit, it looked like. So,
it was also good to see Jack racing. I think they said that was one of his first times in
a while. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that on Facebook too. Somebody I'm friends with congratulated him, and
you couldn't tell that he's taking time off.
No,
not at all.
He was very dominant as well. So I feel like that could have been with the cars that we had left on the lead lap. I think it could have been anybody's race at that point.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, this caution red flag came out. They ended it with a green-white checkered. Sammy did get sent to the back of the lead lap cars, which at this point there was only like
four.
Well, plus
there was him. 5. Yeah, so 5 total, 4 other cars. I wanted to ask you this because I know on another podcast they were talking about this. Jack's podcast, they were talking about this. Do you think the call should have been him going to the back of the lead lap cars or the back of the line?
to make things interesting, I really want to say line because obviously he was faster than everybody else out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it didn't help that Jake got into the wall. Like,
Right.
Sammy didn't let up there either. Everybody else did. He just passed everybody and took off.
Right.
I think, obviously, the call, you really can't send the dude to the back of like guys that are 20 laps down or whatever.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, I mean, I get the call to send him to the back of the lead lap cars because he is on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether that wreck was his fault or not. But, just me being me, I want to say, like, send him to the very back.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I can't fault the series for making that decision to put him behind the lead lap cars. I don't think. I don't know. It's like a matter of is it fair or not. So I mean, they made the call. I think it was the right one to make. But I'll tell you right now, I didn't want him to win that race.
I didn't either.
Really wanted Stephen Nasse. He had a dominant car. And like you said, after they got that damage, not much to it was just the deck lid, it seemed like. Once they got it taped up.
Folded a little bit, but they got it taped up and went back out there.
Couldn't tell.
I think the big issue with a lot of these teams is Sammy still had a fresh set of tires, right? So it was rights or lefts at the end of the race.
Yeah, he had one set of tires.
Where everybody else was already used up. So, like, Stephen Nasse was already putting on already used tires at the end of the race. But, Sammy was able to get past everybody. It's all strategy, kind of how it all played out. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. So the top 5 ended up being Sammy Smith taking the win, Stephen Nasse in second, Eddie Van Meter in third. Eddie Van Meter kind of was silent a lot of the day.
Definitely under the radar.
But good finish for Indianapolis guy. Good, Jake Garcia finished fourth after he was in the lead and got into the wall when the green flag dropped for the green-white checkered. And Dusty Williams coming in the top 5. And believe it or not, Dusty Williams wrecked his car twice throughout the weekend. And was able to squeeze out a top 5 finish in the Winchester 400. Mm-hmm. So props to him, props to his team. Another thing I want to add about this year's Winchester 400 that, was more special. Granted, it was the 50th, but during, leading the cars to the initial green flag was Bob Seneker out there in his old late model. And, it was super cool to see, him and his car followed by, the super lates 3 wide, all with the American flag. It was one of the coolest things I think I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it was, you can't really put it into words. It was cool.
Very special to the sport.
Yeah. I mean, to see what the sport was and where we're at now and just to, I'm sure I know Bob has a lot of memories from previous Winchester 400s.
Legend.
So to come from, the early days to what was the 50th running of the Winchester 400. And, I was like, how cool would it be if we were still around for the 100th running, right? 50 years from now. We'll be old. I don't know if I want to live that long, but if it's for the Winchester 400, maybe.
You bet I will be in a camper by then.
Yeah.
I will.
Tents.
I will gladly sleep in a tent as long as there is no rain in the forecast. I don't mind. I don't mind the cold. I can bring enough blankets to stay warm.
And we had pretty good spots.
Yeah,
I think so.
We did. But anyway, this year's Winchester 400 was definitely one for the books.
Definitely eventful for us.
It was an experience, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I will definitely be at next year, obviously, unless something catastrophic happens. But
let's not. We'll be there. We'll be there for.
We'll be there.
We'll be there for 2022.
But yeah. So that kind of wraps up Winchester 400 weekend. So I think next we're looking to kind of get a small interview with Dakota's brother Hunter. This was his first Winchester 400. Just kind of want to see what his thoughts were going into it.
Yeah.
What his expectations were, and get his thoughts on the race itself. But I got to figure out if he's available to do this right now.
Yep. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back, hopefully, for an interview with a first-time 400 attendee.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We are currently being joined by Hunter Clark, the brother of Dakota Clark. We will be chatting with him about his first Winchester 400 experience, asking him some questions, and hopefully persuading some new people to attend the race next year. So first off, I want to thank Hunter for taking time out of his day to join us and talk with us today.
Absolutely.
My first question for you is, how was your first Winchester 400?
Overall, it's pretty good. Definitely a different experience than what I've been known to.
Is it a race that you would go back to?
Definitely. Winchester offers a unique experience that I don't think any other track offers.
All right. So what was your favorite part of the weekend?
Other than the racing itself throughout all the classes, it was definitely being able to go on race day on Sunday and meet all the drivers, get up close with all the cars, and especially look at how that track is and how banked those turns really are. Yeah,
I think that's something that Winchester offers that I wish a lot of other short tracks would adopt. Now I don't know if that's the case. I know that a lot of the tracks around here don't do that, but we discussed this in our first episode that getting fans involved as much as possible, I think, is a very key component to keeping the sport alive, getting new people into it, because racing in general is really cool. Like if you really understand it on a deeper level, that rather than just they make left turns. Like there's way more to it than that,
right? And
being able to get up close and personal with the drivers and looking at all the technology in the car and stuff like that, I think it's a big factor that plays into a fan base.
Right. And to carry that point, Winchester is such a big track and it has a big reputation. And it was the point that we made last episode with AJ when he said pictures don't do the track justice. You really don't get to comprehend just how massive that banking is until you step foot at that track and see it for yourself. And it's definitely something that's shocking and surprising and just a lot to take in.
Right. Hunter, next up, what were your expectations going into the weekend?
Definitely expected a lot of good racing, high intensity, and overall good driving.
So were there more or fewer cautions, minus the competition cautions? Were there more or fewer than you expected?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot fewer. The reasoning on that is just with it being the Winchester 400, the reputation that race has, everyone's wanting to win that race. I definitely thought there was going to be a lot more like aggressive driving throughout the entire course of the race rather than just right there at the end. Like I said, with that reputation the race has, you'd expect everybody to, going in 100% throughout the whole race.
Kind of fighting for, they want to be in a good position all race. Right. They don't want to, you'd think that they don't want to just ride around in the back.
Yeah, and then make that time up at the end.
Right.
Also the high speed, around that track, these cars get up to, high speeds and everything. And with how the track is with the banking, I just feel like there's not a lot of room for error. So, you push it too hard, then you're obviously going to make a mistake, and that's going to, could end your race with the speeds that track carries.
Right. And going back to, you figured people would be aggressive from the beginning. We kind of covered that with AJ last week. Obviously each team approaches it with a different mindset, because for some people, Winchester is their last race of the year. Some people are, they go straight into preparing for, now the All-American 400, or they skip the All-American 400 and go to the Snowball Derby. For everybody, it's not their last race of the year. So, depending on the driver, depending on the team, they all go into it with a different game plan. For someone who that's their last race, and what do we got to lose? It's the off season after this. Might as well just go out and give it all we got all race, versus someone's like, oh, well, we have a race in 2 weeks or whatever in Nashville. Let's just roll around and, come home with a decent finish.
Yeah. And going back to being, more conservative with their equipment, we talked with AJ about that. There ain't a lot of big teams out there. You got a lot of small teams who only have a car, might have a backup car. But it certainly is a race that it could be their last race, whether they intend for that to be or not.
Absolutely. Well, Hunter, I think that's all that I have for you. I appreciate you taking the short amount of time out of your day to come chat with us and give your insights on your first Winchester 400.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. To kind of wrap up the show, we wanted to clear up some stuff regarding our social media posts about some exciting news we had. We got two bits of news here, actually. First and foremost, we want to announce that 3 Wide with DJG will be sponsoring 3 laps for the All-American 400 Super Late Model Race in Nashville, Tennessee. We chose to sponsor lap 32, lap 33, and lap 34. Those numbers were chosen because those are the numbers of our own race cars. The second bit of news is that we are currently planning to offer our podcast episodes in video on YouTube. That's kind of in the works. We got to get a set built, kind of get a backdrop. That way it's not just a video of us talking with random parts, tools, cars in the background. But yeah, so that's the plan right now. That's our exciting news. So I hope you guys stick with us and just kind of ride along for this journey as we continue to grow, continue to develop our skills, and hopefully expand a little bit. Yeah,
and I just wanted to say, as I've been saying, bear with us. We're learning. We're getting better. Before I give my tangent to end the show, if you don't follow us on social media, you could find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DJG Podcast. Instagram is at DJG_podcast. But you can follow us there where we will post any information. So after this episode, I will be posting the news on social media that we will be sponsoring laps 32, 33, and 34 for the All-American 400 weekend. Those laps will be sponsored in both the Pro Late Model Race and the Super Late Model Race. And once we get closer to time with our set being built, we'll certainly make that announcement for our transition to also offering our episodes on YouTube. Another thing that we just kind of mentioned today, so this is still kind of just an idea at the moment, but we discussed making a TikTok account for the podcast where we would just kind of post random tidbits, important information, stuff like that for our viewers. So again, that's just an idea right now. That's not a guaranteed thing, but be looking for that in the future. We will keep you updated. And again, thanks for sticking with us. Absolutely. And sorry, I want to add something else. We definitely want our viewers to have access to us and the podcast. We'll also be sharing news for our race team, so it'll all kind of be together, but definitely worth looking at. But to close out this episode, next week for our third episode, we're hoping to be able to have a discussion regarding the struggles of asphalt short track racing and compare it to what seems like the success of dirt racing and how we could bridge the gap between the two forms of racing. I don't want to get into too much detail, but I do hope to get a decent, pretty good conversation going between us and maybe a few other people. We will also be providing our pre-race coverage of this year's All-American 400 weekend at the famous Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. So be sure to follow us on our social media platforms. They will be linked with this episode. And yeah, I think that's all we got for today. All right, everybody. That was episode 2 of 3 Wide with DJG. We thank you all for joining us, and we hope to have you with us again next week.